among leaves when gathering nuts, or queer shining pupae cases came to light as I lifted wildflowers in the fall. All these were carried to my little conservatory, placed in as natural conditions as possible, and studies were made from the moths that emerged the following spring. I am not sure but that Moths of the Limberlost Cabin would be the most appropriate title for this book. Sometimes, before I had finished with them, they paired, mated, and dotted everything with fertile eggs, from which tiny caterpillars soon would emerge. It became a matter of intense interest to provide their natural foods and raise them. That started me to watching for caterpillars and eggs out of doors, and friends of my work began carrying them to me. Repeatedly I have gone through the entire life process, from mating newly emerged moths, the egg period, caterpillar life, with its complicated moults and changes, the spinning of cocoons, the miraculous winter sleep, to the spring appearance, and with my cameras recorded each stage of development. Then on platinum paper, printed so lightly from these negatives as to give only an exact reproduction of forms, and with watercolor medium copied each mark, line and color gradation in most cases from the living moth at its prime. Never was the study of birds so interesting. The illustration of every moth book I have ever seen that attempted colored reproduction proved by the shriveled bodies and unnatural position of the wings that it had been painted from objects mounted from weeks to years in private collections or museums. A lifeless moth fades rapidly under the most favorable conditions. A moth at 8 days of age, in the last stages of decline, is from 4 to 6 distinct shades lighter in color than at 6 hours from the cocoon, when it is dry and ready for flight. As soon as circulation stops and the life juices evaporate from the wings and body, the color grows many shades paler. If exposed to light, moths soon fade almost beyond recognition. I make no claim to being an entomologist. I quite agree with the autocrat of the breakfast table that the subject is too vast for any single human intelligence to grasp. If my life depended upon it, I could not give the scientific name of every least organ and nerve of a moth, and as for wrestling with the thousands of tiny species of day and night, or even attempting all the ramifications of, say, the alluringly beautiful Catocalae family, life is too short unless devoted to this purpose alone. But if I frankly confess my limitations, and offer the book to my nature-loving friends merely as an introduction to the most exquisite creation of the swamp, and the outside history, as it were, of the evolution of these creatures from moth to moth again, surely no one can feel defrauded. Since the publication of A Girl of the Limberlost, I have received hundreds of letters asking me to write of my experiences with the Lepidoptera of the swamp. This book professes to be nothing more. Because so many enemies prey upon the large night moths in all stages, they are nowhere sufficiently numerous to be pests, or common enough to be given local names, as have the birds. I have been compelled to use their scientific names to assist in identification, and at times I have had to resort to technical terms, because there were no other. Frequently I have written of them under the names by which I knew them in childhood, or that we of Limberlost Cabin have bestowed upon them. There is a wide gulf between a naturalist and a nature lover. A naturalist devotes his life to delving into stiff scientific problems concerning everything in nature from her greatest to her most minute forms. A nature lover works at any occupation and finds recreation in being out of doors and appreciating the common things of life as they appeal to his senses. The naturalist always begins at the beginning and traces family, subfamily, genus, and species. He deals in Latin and Greek terms of resounding and disheartening combinations. At his hands anatomy and markings become lost in a scientific jargon of patagia, jugum, discocellulars, phagocytes, and so on to the end of the volume. For one who would be a naturalist, a rare specimen indeed, there are many volumes on the market. The list of pioneer Lepidopterus begins authoritatively with Linnaeus, and since his time you can make your selection from the works of Druce, Grote, Strecker, Bois de Voile, Robinson, Smith, Butler, Fernald, Butenmuller, Hicks, Rothschild, Hampson, Stretch, Lyman, or any of a dozen others. Possessing such an imposing array of names, there should be no necessity to add to them. These men have impaled moths, and dissected, magnified, and located brain, heart, and nerves. After finishing the interior, they have given to the most minute exterior organ from 2 to 3 inches of Latin name. From them we learn that it requires a coxa, trochanter, femur, tibia, tarsus, unguis,